Carroll Shelby built the GT500 as the definitive American performance car. It had his name on the fenders, his fiberglass hood with a functional scoop, his Koni shocks and export brace, and competition-spec interior. The 428 Cobra Jet under the hood was running a factory 335 horsepower that fooled nobody who had ever sat behind one and floored it. This was the premium product. This was what serious performance money bought you in 1969. Plymouth's response was a car with a cartoon bird for a logo and a horn that went beep beep. The Road Runner, named after a Warner Brothers cartoon character that Plymouth paid $50,000 to license. Stripped interior, rubber floor mat, no luxury options, no prestige. The point was the Hemi engine under the hood and the $813 it cost to put it there on top of a $3,000 car. Plymouth had done the math and concluded that a lot of people wanted 426 cubic inches of hemispherical combustion more than they wanted Carroll Shelby's signature. When these two cars hit the same strip at the same time, the premium product ran a 14.04 at 103 miles per hour. The cartoon bird ran a 13.54 at 105.88. The car with the name, the fiberglass hood, the Koni shocks, and the $1,100 premium over the Road Runner's price lost by half a second to a car with a beep-beep horn and a rubber floor mat. This is the Shelby GT500 versus the Hemi Road Runner, the most famous name in American performance against the car Plymouth built for people who couldn't afford the most famous name but wanted to win anyway. Carroll Shelby's history with Ford is one of the defining partnerships in American automotive racing. The Cobra, the GT40, the original GT350. By the time the 1969 GT500 reached dealerships, Shelby American had spent 5 years building a reputation that genuinely meant something to the people spending money on performance cars. When you bought a Shelby, you were buying into a lineage that ran through Le Mans and Daytona, and every SCCA race the Cobras had dominated in the early 1960s. The 1969 GT500 was built on the Mustang sports roof body, Ford's fastback Mach 1 platform, with Shelby-specific bodywork that included a reshaped fiberglass front end, hood scoops, a rear spoiler, and side stripes that made the car unmistakable at a distance. The interior got a roll bar, additional gauges, and a center console with wood grain trim. Shelby's team had installed staggered rear shocks to reduce wheel hop under hard acceleration, and the front suspension geometry was adjusted to improve high-speed stability on track. Under the hood, the 428 Cobra Jet, Ford's revised big block that had replaced the controversial 427 series for street and performance use. The factory rating was 335 horsepower, a number that became a running joke in the automotive press because everyone who tested a Cobra Jet concluded that the actual output was closer to 400 horsepower, and some testers put it higher than that. Ford's conservative rating strategy was by this point well understood. The company was managing insurance classification pressures and NASCAR class eligibility simultaneously, and 335 was the number that kept both doors open. The GT500 cost approximately $4,753 in base sports roof configuration, with options pushing most buyers to $5,000 or beyond. That was the price of commitment. You were paying for Shelby's name, for the bodywork, for the sorted suspension, for the documented racing pedigree. You were paying for a car that looked different from anything else on the street and came with a story built in. Plymouth's engineering brief for the Road Runner was almost aggressively anti-prestige. This was a car designed to win drag races with no pretension attached. The concept originated inside Plymouth's product planning group in 1967, when the data showed that most of the people buying muscle cars were young, male, and spending more money than they should on cars they couldn't fully afford. The solution was to strip away everything those buyers weren't paying for and charge them only for what they actually wanted, a fast car. The base Road Runner in 1969 was a B-body Plymouth with a bench seat, rubber floor mat, minimal sound deadening, no exterior trim except the Road Runner bird graphics, and a 383 cubic inch V8 breathing through a modified intake manifold borrowed from the 440. That 383 was engineered to perform like a 440 at a fraction of the cost. Plymouth then offered the 426 Hemi as an option for $813. $813 on top of a base price that started at $3,083. The math was simple and brutal. For around $3,900 total, you had a Hemi. The 426 Street Hemi was the same engine that had swept the top 5 positions at Daytona in 1964 and sent Ford back to their engineering department in a cold panic. The street version had been detuned for daily use, a less aggressive camshaft, cast iron intake manifold, and twin 4-barrel Carter AFBs instead of the race program's more exotic induction. Factory rating, 425 horsepower. Actual output, closer to 500 at the flywheel. Nobody at Chrysler disputed the gap. The conservative rating was deliberate. A 500 horsepower engine in a production car would have triggered regulatory conversations that Chrysler had no interest in starting. The Road Runner Hemi weighed approximately 3,400 pounds. That was 170 pounds lighter than the GT500, which carried its Shelby bodywork, additional interior components, and the general weight of being a premium product. The weight difference didn't decide the race, the engines decided the race, but it didn't hurt. The 428 Cobra Jet and the 426 Hemi were fundamentally different approaches to the same problem of generating maximum power from a large displacement American V8. The Cobra Jet was a conventional wedge-head design with excellent breathing characteristics for a pushrod engine, capable of making broad torque across a wide RPM range and relatively forgiving of driver skill at the strip. Ford had developed the FE series through years of racing use at Le Mans and on NASCAR superspeedways, and by the time the 428 arrived, the design had matured into something genuinely excellent. The 426 Hemi was not a design improvement on conventional wedge-head technology. It was a different category of engine. The hemispherical combustion chambers that gave the Hemi its name and its performance advantage were not an evolutionary step. They were a specific engineering choice that prioritized maximum airflow and combustion efficiency over manufacturing simplicity. The heads were expensive to make, difficult to tune, and produced an engine that required more maintenance and was less forgiving in daily use than the Cobra Jet. The compensation for those trade-offs was raw power that no wedge-head engine of equivalent displacement could match. The Cobra Jet's advantage was usability. It made its power in a broader, more accessible band. It didn't require the driver to manage a narrow power window or develop a specific skill with clutch and throttle to extract a good run. A capable driver in a GT500 could run consistent, repeatable times without the car demanding expert-level technique. The Hemi's advantage was the top end, the section of the quarter mile where the hemispherical chambers, larger valves, and more efficient combustion geometry gave it more power than the Cobra Jet could match. Through the first 100 feet, the two engines were comparable. Approaching the 8th mile marker, the Hemi was beginning to pull. At the finish line, the Hemi was going faster and getting there sooner. Motor Trend tested the 1969 GT500 with the 428 Cobra Jet and recorded a 14.04-second quarter mile at 103.32 miles per hour. Car and Driver's Test produced a 13.9 at 104 miles per hour. These numbers were consistent with other contemporary tests and reflected a GT500 that was quick for a pony car. Quick in absolute terms for 1969, but not in the same league as the dedicated muscle car competition. Car and Driver tested the Hemi Road Runner the same year and recorded 13.54 seconds at 105.88 miles per hour. That was the number that ended the argument. Half a second faster, nearly 3 miles per hour faster through the traps. The Hemi Road Runner wasn't close to the GT500. It was conclusively faster by a margin that no reasonable retest could reverse. Road and Track's independent testing confirmed the gap. The strip data across multiple publications consistently showed the Road Runner with the Hemi running in the 13.5 range, while the GT500 ran in the high 13 to 14 flat range. 0 to 60 told the same story. The Hemi Road Runner hit 60 in approximately 6.6 seconds despite being hampered by the traction limitations of its stock bias ply tires. The GT500 was slightly quicker to 60 because the Cobra Jet's broader power band and the Mustang's shorter wheelbase made it easier to launch, but the Road Runner recovered and passed it in the back half. The race was decided by what happened between 500 feet and the finish line, and the Hemi won that section every time. The price difference is what makes this comparison historically significant. The GT500 represented everything the American performance market valued in 1969. A name with a documented racing legacy, premium materials and construction, a car that announced itself on the street and justified its price through pedigree. The Road Runner represented a different theory entirely, that the customer who wanted to win on the drag strip didn't need the name, didn't need the interior, didn't need the story, they needed the engine. And Plymouth would sell them just the engine, wrapped in a minimum of car for a price that left money for gas and tires. The $1,100 premium the GT500 commanded over the Road Runner Hemi, roughly 28% more money, bought you Carroll Shelby's signature and a slower car. That calculation is not an indictment of the GT500, which was genuinely excellent at the things premium market buyers paid for: the touring capability, the refinement, the image. But it was an indictment of the idea that more money meant more performance. In 1969, on the quarter mile, it didn't. Both cars are worth serious collector money today, though for different reasons. A documented 1969 Shelby GT500 with matching numbers commands $150,000 to $250,000, depending on specification and provenance. The Shelby name carries a premium in the collector market that has continued to compound since the cars were new. Carroll Shelby's death in 2012 put a ceiling on the authenticity of the nameplate that only increased the value of genuine examples. Numbers matching 1969 Hemi Road Runner trades in the $200,000 to $400,000 range, with well-documented examples in exceptional condition reaching higher. The Hemi tax, the premium that any car wearing the 426 Hemi engine commands, has been compounding for decades, and the Road Runner's relative rarity in Hemi specification makes high-quality examples genuinely scarce. The race that happened between them in 1969 was settled by physics. The Hemi was a better drag race engine than the Cobra Jet. Plymouth understood that, charged accordingly, and let the strip settle the argument. Carroll Shelby built a better car in almost every other sense. Better chassis, better suspension, better everything you'd want if you were driving on real roads at legal speeds. The beep-beep horn and the rubber floor mat just didn't slow down the part of the car that mattered on Saturday night.